Had a ball in Helsinki, but President Trump today returned to harsh criticism over his meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and that led to a rare reversal today.
Well, President Trump admitted today that he misspoke during his news conference with Vladimir Putin.
But he says the mistake only had to do with one word.
CBS 2 political reporter Bryan is here now with more on what the president would and contraction wouldn't say.
He said wouldn't and he meant would, or he said would and he meant wouldn't. Was it a misstatement? Was it an apology? It was kind of hard to tell sometimes exactly what was going on. After a 24-hour political hurricane of criticism over his Helsinki remarks absolving Russia of any blame for their 2016 election meddling, President Trump tried to calm the waters today. He read a written statement and made some off-the-cuff remarks, which boiled down to he made a misstatement yesterday. But he didn't stop there, and the storm continues. A strange coincidence today as President Trump tried to shed light on what he meant to say in Helsinki.
I have a full faith in our intelligence agencies. Whoops, they just turned off the light. That must be the intelligence agencies.
Sources tell CBS News that White House officials urged the president to clean up his remarks Monday when he appeared to side with Russian President Vladimir Putin over his own intelligence agencies about Russian election meddling.
He just said it's not Russia. I will say this, I don't see any reason why it would be.
He now says he misspoke.
The sentence should have been, I don't see any reason why it wouldn't be Russia. Sort of a double negative.
But the president never addressed the other moments critics have questioned, such as when he highlighted the strength of Putin's denials instead of his own intelligence officials' conclusions.
President Putin was extremely strong and powerful in his denial today.
Or when he blamed both sides when asked if he holds Russia accountable for anything at all.
Yes, I do. I hold both countries responsible.
And even while reading his statement today supporting the intelligence community's conclusion that Russia is to blame, well, he ad-libbed this.
Could be other people also. There's a lot of people out there.
So how will lawmakers respond now? Well, Republican Senator Bob Corker said he senses the dam of support for President Trump is breaking with Republicans on Capitol Hill.
I had calls until late last night from people on both sides of the aisle about next steps.
Florida Senator Marco Rubio is proposing new sanctions against Russia, something Democrats say they support. But Democrats are also calling for hearings to find out what President Trump may have said during his 2-hour one-on-one meeting with Vladimir Putin.
We're worried about what the president said publicly. We're even more worried about what happened in those 2 hours when the president was alone with Mr. Putin.
And they may get a chance to find out more about that. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo is now scheduled to testify before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee next week about exactly what happened in Helsinki. So we know what we'll be talking about next week. This is not over for sure.
We knew that as of yesterday, didn't we?
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, no doubt.
Thank you, Dave.
Okay.